This week, President Trump signed 11 executive orders and proclamations. There were no revocations, but 6 previous proclamations and 2 executive orders were amended or superseded. There were also 27 new or updated lawsuits. A key theme this week is national security, with several orders focusing on immigration and cybersecurity. Other themes include economic development, trade, and government efficiency. Departments significantly impacted include the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, Department of State, and Department of Commerce. Several actions affect foreign countries, including China, the United Kingdom, Afghanistan, Chad, Myanmar, Burundi, Congo, Cuba, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Iran, Laos, Libya, Sierra Leone, Somalia, Sudan, Togo, Turkmenistan, Venezuela, and Yemen. On June 4th, a proclamation was issued enhancing national security by addressing risks at Harvard University, suspending the entry of foreign nationals seeking to study there due to national security concerns. This affects the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and the Department of State, and restricts FM&J visas for individuals intending to participate in courses of study or exchange visitor programs hosted by Harvard University. Also, on June 4th, a presidential memorandum directed the Attorney General and the Counsel to the President to review certain presidential actions, specifically to investigate whether President Biden's aides concealed his cognitive decline and unconstitutionally exercised presidential authorities through the use of an autopen. The Department of Justice is the affected department. Another proclamation on June 4th restricts the entry of foreign nationals to protect the United States from foreign terrorists and other national security and public safety threats, following Executive Order 14,161. On June 3rd, a proclamation was issued adjusting imports of aluminum and steel into the United States, increasing tariffs from 25% ad valorem to 50% ad valorem effective June 4th, 2025. It modifies the application of tariff measures described in Executive Order 14,289 and provides different treatment for imports from the United Kingdom. This affects the Department of Commerce and amends or supersedes multiple prior proclamations in Executive Order 14,289. June 2025 was proclaimed as National Ocean Month on June 6th, emphasizing the importance of oceans to security, environment, economy, recreation, and enjoyment. The Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, and the Department of the Interior are affected. A presidential memorandum issued on June 6 directs the Secretary of Health and Human Services to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, ensuring payment rates are not higher than Medicare rates. An executive order issued on June 6 sustains select efforts to strengthen the nation's cybersecurity and amends Executive Order 13,694 and Executive Order 14,144, addressing cyber threats from nations like China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. Affected departments include the Department of Commerce, the Department of Energy, the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Management and Budget, the National Science Foundation, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and the National Security Agency. Section 5 and Section 7 from Executive Order 14,144 are revoked. Another executive order on June 6 focuses on unleashing American drone dominance, aiming to accelerate the safe commercialization of drone technologies. The Department of Transportation, the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Office of Management and Budget, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and the Federal Aviation Administration are affected. Also, on June 6th, an executive order was issued to restore American airspace sovereignty, addressing threats posed by unmanned aircraft systems. Affected departments include the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, the Department of Transportation, the Federal Aviation Administration, the Office of Management and Budget, and the Federal Communications Commission. Another executive order on June 6th aims to lead the world in supersonic flight, updating regulations, and promoting research and development. This affects the Department of Commerce, the Department of Defense, the Department of State, the Department of Transportation, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and the Federal Aviation Administration, and revokes 14 CFR 91.819 and 14 CFR 91.821. Finally, on June 7th, a presidential memorandum authorized the Department of Defense to provide security for the protection of Department of Homeland Security functions, specifically related to immigration and customs enforcement and federal property. Now, for the court actions. In the case of JGG versus Trump in the District of Columbia, case number 125, CV00766, regarding the Alien Enemies Act removals, Judge Boasberg issued an order and memorandum opinion on June 4th, granting the plaintiff's motion for class certification of the detainees in C.E. Cott Prison and a preliminary injunction, but denied class certification for individuals held in the United States in criminal custody. No updates were found in the case of City of Chelsea versus Trump in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125, CV10442, concerning immigration policy in sanctuary cities. In the case of DVD versus U.S. Department of Homeland Security in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125, CV10676, regarding deportation to a third country, the Office of the General Counsel's Attorney stated on June 4th that his client was flowing back to the United States. In the case of American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO versus Social Security Administration in the District of Maryland, case number 125, CV00596, concerning disclosure of personal and financial records to the Department of Government Efficiency, the Supreme Court granted a stay while the case is on appeal on June 6th. No updates were found in the case of State of New York versus McMahon in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125, CV10601, regarding the dismantling or restructuring of the Department of Education. No updates were found in the case of Somerville Public Schools versus Trump in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125, CV10677, also regarding the dismantling or restructuring of the Department of Education. In the case of State of Maryland versus Corporation for National and Community Service in the District of Maryland, case number 125, CV01363, concerning dismantling AmeriCorps, Judge Boardman granted a preliminary injunction on June 5th. In the case of Democratic National Committee versus Trump in the District of Columbia, case number 125, CV00587, regarding the assertion of executive control of independent agencies, Judge Lee granted the defendant's motion to dismiss the plaintiff's lawsuit on June 3rd. In the case of American Federation of Government Employees AFL-CIO versus Noam in the Western District of Washington, case number 225, CV00451, concerning the rescission of collective bargaining, Judge Peckman issued a preliminary injunction on June 2nd. In the case of State of New York versus Department of Education in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125 CV11116, regarding the denial of federal grants, Judge Edgardo Ramos granted a preliminary injunction on June 3rd, and the government appealed to the Second Circuit the following day. No updates were found in the case of President and Fellows of Harvard College versus U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125, CV11048, regarding actions toward universities. No updates were found in the case of Sustainability Institute versus Trump in the District of South Carolina, case number 225, CV02152RMG, concerning unleashing American energy and ending radical diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. No updates were found in the case of Kingdom versus Trump in the District of Columbia, case number 125, CV00691, regarding the housing of transgender inmates. In the case of the Associated Press versus Budowich in the District of Columbia, case number 125, CV00532, regarding denying press access to the White House, a federal appeals court agreed on June 6th to let the administration ban the Associated Press from certain restricted presidential workspaces. No updates were found in the case of State of California versus U.S. Department of Education in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125 CV10548, regarding the ban on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives. In the case of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington versus Department of Government Efficiency in the District of Columbia, case number 125 CV00511, concerning the response to Freedom of Information Act and records retention, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 on June 6th to stay the lower court's action and instructed the Court of Appeals to narrow the discovery order. No updates were found in the case of State of California versus Trump in the Northern District of California, case number 325 CVO 3372, regarding tariffs. No updates were found in the case of King County versus Turner in the Western District of Washington, case number 225 CVO 0814, concerning the ban on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility initiatives. In the case of Darwin Antonio Arevalo Milan versus Trump in the Central District of California, case number 525 CVO 1207, regarding the Alien Enemies Act removals, Judge Holcomb granted a preliminary injunction on June 6, stopping the government from deporting certain the petitioner and a certified class until further order from the court. In the case of President and Fellows of Harvard College versus Department of Homeland Security in the District of Massachusetts, case number 125 CV 11472, regarding actions toward universities, the President issued a new proclamation on June 4th, and on June 5th, the plaintiff filed a motion for a temporary restraining order, which the court granted. In the case of American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO versus Trump, in the Northern District of California, case number 325, CVO 3698, regarding large-scale reductions in force, the government asked the Supreme Court on June 2nd to halt Judge Ilston's ruling limiting mass reductions in force at federal agencies. No updates were found in the case of Edison versus Dickerson, also known as EDQC, versus Stewart Detention Facility in the Middle District of Georgia, case number 425, CV0005 OCDLAGH, regarding deportation to a third country. No updates were found in the case of National Association of Immigration Judges versus Cersei E. Owen in the Eastern District of Virginia, case number 120, CV00731 LMBJFA, regarding government employees' speech. No updates were found in the case of Baraka versus Haba in the District of New Jersey, case number 225 CVO6846, regarding criminal arrests and prosecutions. No updates were found in the case of Georgetown Law Center on Privacy and Technology versus Customs and Border Protection in the District of Columbia, case number 125 CVO1732, regarding response to Freedom of Information Act and records retention. No updates were found in the case of Dvortson as next friend of Hayam El Gamal et al., petitioner versus Noam in the District of Colorado, case number 125 CVO1741, regarding other habeas and removal actions. No updates were found in the case of Brown versus Trump in the District of Columbia regarding removal of independent agency leaders. No updates were found in the case of National Job Corps Association versus Department of Labor in the Southern District of New York, case number 125 CVO4641. However, Judge Andrew Carter granted a temporary restraining order on June 4th. No updates were found in the case of Jackson versus Kennedy in the District of Columbia, case number 125 CVO1750, regarding large-scale reductions in force. No updates were found in the case of Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights versus Department of State in the District of Columbia, case number 125 CVO1774, regarding removal to El Salvador and fear of persecution. No updates were found in the case of Brown versus Trump in the District of Columbia, case number 125 CVO1764, regarding removal of independent agency leaders. No updates were found in the case of Shapiro versus Department of Agriculture in the Middle District of Pennsylvania, case number 125 CVO0998, regarding government grants, loans, and assistance. No updates were found in the case of Thakur versus Trump in the Northern District of California, case number 325 CVO4737, regarding actions toward universities. For full details on these executive actions and court cases, please refer to the 47 POTUS app. This summary was created by 47 POTUS and narrated by an automated voice.